All right, hey, I just wanted to check in with my end of the month wrap up for May of 2025. I also will have a book haul of the books that I picked up this month to be reading in the foreseeable future. So I, again, only read 4 books. This time I don't feel as guilty though, because these were 4 larger books, plus I almost finished a 5th very large book. I didn't quite finish it, and I'll get to why, but I wanted to cover the books that I did finish and the books that I picked up here. So I have 5 books that I read / am reading, and then I have about 11 books that I picked up. So it's a big haul for me this time. Normally I only pick up about 8, which traditionally has covered me for about a month, but lately it's been about 2 months for 8 books. But 11's a lot for me, so we'll get to that. But I started out my month with The Outsider by Stephen King. This is the first book that Holly Gibney is on her own solving a case without Bill Hodges, obviously. And it's about a man who is framed for a rape and murder that he did not commit of a child. And it was a gruesome scene. There's some kind of paranormal stuff going on in this book. And obviously Holly has to help solve the case. I really did enjoy this book. I thought it was good. I really like Holly Gibney as a character, so anything that she is a part of, I have enjoyed so far. But this is how my month started. I then moved on to Brisinger by Christopher Paolini. This is the 3rd book in the Inheritance cycle. I think this might be my favorite of the 3 so far. Aragon as a character, I think, has been more fleshed out by this point, and it has been a lot more enjoyable to get through his story. He's still trying to grow and figure out his place in this giant war, essentially, that's going on. But it feels very good, and I really enjoyed this book. All of these I have obviously full reviews for on my channel, so if you're more curious about one of these books, you can go check that out. Christine by Stephen King. This is about a car that is sentient and takes control of the boy who ends up buying her, and really turns him into this other person. It's haunting at times. It's very good. I really like the characters in this book. Well written. Parts of it were from first-person perspective, parts were from third-person perspective. I liked the way that Stephen King ended up doing that. I thought it worked out very well, and I enjoyed this book and I enjoyed the story a lot. Next up is actually probably my favorite book of the month, which is a huge shock for me, because this book I have been putting off for months. Normally I try to read my books that I have right away, and I don't allow myself to buy any more books until I finish up my books or I'm close to. But this kept kind of just ending up at the bottom of the pile, and that is Where's Joe Merchant by Jimmy Buffett. This was a phenomenal book. It took about half of the book before it really clicked for me, but the second half of the book I just flew through. This is about a man who he was a ex-rock star essentially that killed himself, and suddenly he's been kind of spotted in other areas of the world. It's kind of like an Elvis situation where people think they see him, and there's all these kind of rumors and news. Nobody really knows for certain. Well, his sister decides to go and look for him and enlist the help of a pilot, which is her boyfriend, to go down into the Caribbean and look for him there. And there's a lot of other things going on. There's a magic scepter that supposedly is going to help this lady make a rocket ship fly. It's a crazy story. All the characters are amazing and very well written, in my opinion. And I love Jimmy Buffett, so. Now, those were the 4 books that I actually finished this month. And they were all pretty large books, in my opinion. This next one, I think, is the longest book, and I didn't quite make it through. That is Swan Song by Robert McCammon. You can see I'm in the last little bits here. The reason I was going to finish this yesterday. The reason I didn't was because I ended up kind of surprised going mushroom hunting with my cousin up in the mountains, and we spent 15 hours out there going up and down some steep inclines, steep hills, gathering mushrooms. We were getting morel mushrooms. we ended up with almost 20 pounds of them, which was awesome. So we had a really good time up in the mountains, but it didn't let me finish this book. So this is one that I will end up reading, finishing off in the next day or two, and I'll have a review up on my channel for this soon, explaining more about this book. But essentially it is all of the countries in the world decided to launch their nukes, and the survivors in the US are trying to figure out what the fuck's going on, essentially. And it jumps between like 3 different main kind of groups of characters. I've really enjoyed my time with this. I will say though, it just feels like kind of a ripoff of The Stand, and I would rather just read The Stand, which I think is significantly better. The characters are way better in The Stand. Right here, actually. The characters are way better in The Stand, and more fleshed out. But I still enjoy this so far, but I will have my full thoughts on this coming soon. Now, for the exciting part, maybe, the books that I picked up. So 8 of these I picked up at Barnes & Noble, 2 on Amazon, and 1 at a Half-Price Books. I will first do the Half-Price Books one, which is Geralds Game by Stephen King. I got this for $3. There he is. And there he is again. I like having Stephen King. I want to get a big poster of Stephen King somewhere in my room, because I really like this guy. And his look, something about his look, he's so interesting. But this is my little Stephen King shelf, by the way. There's a couple books missing right now because, well, I showed them. The Outsider and Christine both normally would be here and up there, but Gerald's Game. All I know about this is that it is a couple that goes into this remote cabin in the woods to try to kind of get their relationship going again, and they are trying to do some like sexual things to bring their spark back, and the man handcuffs the woman up to a bed, and he ends up dying one way or another, and so it's kind of her being handcuffed to the bed and not being able to go anywhere and not being able to get help. That is my understanding of this story. You will see that most of these books I do not know a whole lot about, actually. But I think that's very interesting. I've been looking for this book for a few months, and I never see it in a Barnes & Noble, so I was super excited to run across it at a Half-Price Books. Next, we'll do the 2 books that I got on Amazon, and both of these were because I just didn't find them at the Barnes & Noble, and I really wanted to. Comanche Moon by Larry McMurtry. This is the final book in the Lonesome Dove tetralogy. I am looking forward immensely to reading this. I'm going to try to get to it this June, but no guarantees. It is a big book, and I have a couple other books that I'm really looking forward to reading before this, I think, but we will see. I'm going to try to go to it this month, I suppose. This still takes place before Lonesome Dove, but after Dead Man's Walk. So it is when Call and Gus are a little bit older. They're not beginning to be like Texas Rangers or anything. They're in the middle of it, but it's not quite to where they're doing the cattle run yet. So I'm looking forward to this. I've enjoyed all of them so far, even though I know a lot of people don't really like any of them past Lonesome Dove. I've enjoyed both the other ones I've read so far. I'm extremely looking forward to reading this as well. The other book I got on Amazon, this was actually because I went to my grandma's house, and she told me about a TV series that she really enjoys called Outlander. I looked it up and saw that it was based on some books. I told my mom about it. My mom said she'd be interested in reading it as well, and that obviously is Outlander by Diana Gabaldon. I don't know a whole lot about this besides it being, it takes place in like Scotland in the mid-1900s sometime. That is all I know about this, but it is a series of 8 books. This is the first book. This one's it's a pretty big book, honestly. I'm not gonna lie. I don't know when I'll get to this one, if it'll be this month or next month, but I figured I'd check it out, see what the first one was like, and be able to talk to my grandma about it and see what she thinks. It's funny though. She said she really likes the TV series because the main character is super cute, and so she has a crush on the main dude in the series. So I don't know how good the story actually is, or if it's more she just kind of has a crush. These next 8 books I got from Barnes & Noble. I will first start with my 2 nonfiction books. I am going to try to be getting into nonfiction a little bit more. I have realized that I've read a little too much fiction, and I think some some breaks for some nonfiction would probably be good for me. The first one is The Journals of Lewis and Clark. Obviously by Lewis and Clark. This is edited by Bernard DeVoto. And looking through this, it literally just looks like Saturday, August 3rd, 1805, and here's what they documented that time. I think it's going to be extremely interesting, just seeing how they journaled going across the U.S. and some of the minor things they ran into that we don't learn about in history, because obviously there's only so much you can really teach that's relevant. I think diving into some of the minute stuff will be interesting, and this is a good way to start doing that. So that is why I picked up The Journals of Lewis and Clark. The next book is Ghosts of Honolulu by Mark Harmon and Leon Carroll Jr. This is a story about Pearl Harbor, and I know that it's a true story of some of the events that took place. I don't know a whole lot more than that. I actually avoided reading the back of this book. I kind of just want to go into it and see what the story is actually about. I have been very interested in World War II recently, and I've been watching a lot about Pearl Harbor. That I don't know why that always I always tend to go back to Pearl Harbor for whatever reason. So I picked this up. I thought it'd be interesting. Small little book. So, all right, next up is Inheritance by Christopher Paolini, the fourth and technically final book, I believe, in the Inheritance cycle. He did write Murtagh after, but I don't know if that technically counts in the Inheritance cycle. But this is the fourth and final book. It is also, I think, the largest book. It is a big, it's a chonker. I've been reading this series with my buddy, and I've been enjoying it quite a bit, so I'm looking forward to reading how this concludes. Next up is a classic book, and that is The Picture of Dorian Gray by Oscar Wilde. I have heard so many positive things about this. Obviously, it's a classic. I don't know anything about it, so I'm excited to just kind of go into this blind. I think I can read this in a couple days. Even though it's a classic, it's a pretty short book, so it shouldn't be too bad to get through. Looking forward to it. I don't have a whole lot of classics read. I've read maybe 4 or 5 classics so far, so I need to start upping my amount of classics that I read. Next up is The Hero of Ages by Brandon Sanderson, and this is the third and final book in the original Mistborn trilogy. Again, just looking to see, I'm excited to see how this wraps up. I want to see how Vin's story comes to an end. I've really enjoyed the first 2 books, so I know a lot of people, it's a hit or miss series for some people. I've noticed that there's traditionally been good things said online, but recently there's been some negative things about Mistborn. I've enjoyed the series all the way through so far. For a fantasy series, I will say that. For a fantasy. Fantasy is not my favorite genre, but it is my buddy's favorite genre, so the Inheritance cycle and Mistborn I've been reading with him. Now the next 3 are all Stephen King. I picked up 4 Stephen King books out of the 11 books that I had picked up altogether. The first up is Dolores Clareborn by Stephen King. I know nothing about this. I know that there was a movie made. I believe Kathy Bates was in it. I know she was also in Misery, but I think she was in this movie as well. I know literally nothing about this book, and I don't want to. I want to go into this one blind. I feel like I can read this one in a day because Stephen King books always hook me, and this is a very short Stephen King book. Next up is Song of Susanna. This is the 6th book in the Dark Tower series. The last book did not hook me very well. I really did not enjoy Wolves of Kala very much. But I'm hoping that this kind of brings it around for me. It's a short one for a Dark Tower series. I think this is probably about the same size as the Gunslinger right there, so shouldn't be too bad to get through. But then I believe I only have 1 book after this, and then I think there's like a prequel / like 0.5 book somewhere that I need to read as well. So I'm looking forward to also seeing how the Dark Tower series continues on. And my final book is If It Bleeds. This is a collection of 4 stories by Stephen King. One of those is a Holly Gibney story, which is actually why I picked this up, because I'm trying to get through the Holly Gibney story, because I think that the book that he just released, Never Flinch, which came out like 4 days ago or something like that, I believe that is also a Holly Gibney story, so I want to try to get caught up. I have 1 book after this, and then I should be ready to read that as well. But I'm looking forward to reading all 4 of the stories in here. Don't know a damn thing about any of them, but regardless, it should be a good time. Stephen King's always just so fun to read, man. He's just so awesome. I really like Stephen King. I watch his interviews on repeat often, like very often. I've rewatched so many of his interviews, and there's one video from 1989 of a man going in and kind of just following Stephen King around for like a day and talking to Stephen King, and I love that video. I watch that at least twice a week. I love just hearing him talk. I love Stephen King. But anyways, with my Stephen King dick sucking aside, I'm gonna leave that here. Those were the 4 books I'm reading, the 1 I'm currently reading, and the 11 that I picked up. May turned out to be a decent month. Again, I didn't read technically as much as I'd like to. 4 books still isn't a lot for me, but they were 4 bigger books than last month. And I didn't feel like I was just kind of pushing things off constantly and not reading. I really was truly just busy, which I'm fine with. So I'm having a good time reading again. I'm getting back into the flow. I was going through a little bit of a lull for the last couple months just with some of the big changes in my life, but it's starting to feel a little normal to read again, and I'm starting to enjoy it a lot more again. So with that being said, I appreciate y'all for sticking around, and thanks.